Huskers.
Raiola takes a snap, fade route, back run to the end zone, 50-50 ball! Touchdown, Huskers! Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Sunset, got it! Underdog, and then one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. Late November, Thanksgiving next week. All the sports going on. It is a busy, busy time. Excited to be here with you. We've got a great show planned ahead as Nate Rohr is here. Nate, you've got an early morning tomorrow, but I'm glad you're here early with us today as well. What is going on, my man?
Happy to be here. And man, you talk about busy. I mean, it's men's basketball, women's basketball. You got volleyball and football today. So we are hopping, we are bouncing, but good time of the year.
Yes, we've got a Husker football game to talk about. They are in action with game 11 later today. You've got the volleyball team now as at least locked in as co-conference champions. They'll probably have that outright pretty soon here. And then the women's basketball team headed down to Florida. They're still unbeaten. They're off to a nice little start, and they're only going to get better as they continue to get healthy and continue to work through all of their rotations. But first, Nate, sometimes you have parents who are considering, they're looking around at what's going on and they say, do we want to bring a child into this world? Right now, if you bring a child into this world, the only thing that child knows is that Nebraska men's basketball is the hottest team on God's green earth. 10 straight wins. They've won back-to-back championships. Actually, they've won 3 straight championships if you count the Diamond Head Classic.
Indeed.
You go Diamond Head, you go Crown, and you go NABC. I forgot what it's called. Whatever it is.
Hall of Fame Classic.
The Hall of Fame. Who could forget the
Indeed.
Hall of Fame Classic? And Nate, I'm here to tell you, Fred Hoiberg has got him hopping 86-85 over K-State last night to win yet another trophy. Bring that trophy back to Lincoln, as KP once said. What do you do with this squad? I mean, they are slaying all the Big 8 foes. All right, Iowa State and Kansas are next.
Bring on Norm Stewart in Missouri.
That's right.
Wake up Norm Stewart.
Oklahoma State and Sutton. Let's take them all out. Take them all out. It is quite the time to have one of these. Get on the camera there. One of these vintage, the OG Herbie Husker Nebraska ball hats. Yes. The real ones know. It is amazing to see what Fred Hoiberg has done with this program. I think this is Hoiberg to a T. He's got the squad. He's got the players. They've got some, not so secret weapon anymore, as he's now the Hall of Fame Classic MVP off the bench, Braden Frager. I don't even know where to start and where to go with this. It's a fun time to be a Nebraska ball fan right now.
Yeah, it feels really good. And what I like about this team right now is it feels like they've got a few different ways to beat you. I think they want to be up tempo, which, if they get in a slog against Michigan State, a hands in the mud, 65-60 sort of affair, we'll see how they hold up. But you feel like they can go down low to Mast and score. You feel like they can score with the guards. That while you're getting elite level production out of Price Sandfort and Rink Mast, you're getting other guys involved too. Frager's been terrific. He's been, I think, the story of this early run for Nebraska men's basketball. The fact that he has been so good and as a redshirt freshman. When he's recruited by Nebraska, you take him in and you think, okay, well, maybe he'll come off the bench and he can be a useful contributor and give you some minutes. Well, he's coming off the bench, but he's giving you double-digit points basically every night. And I'll tell you what, Sam Hoiberg's really come along. Yeah. He was another guy where you go, oh, he'll help you and he'll give you some good minutes and he'll be a good defensive guy and he won't screw anything up offensively. He's a double-digit scorer, and he makes the clutch free throw last night to win it. So you're still, Jamarcus Lawrence is still getting settled in. I mean, Sejan's shooting touch hasn't quite come around yet. You just feel like there's a lot there. This team can beat you in a lot of different ways, and when you aren't reliant on one guy, and let's be clear, last year it was one guy. It was Bryce Williams. When you're not reliant on one guy to carry the water for you, you're in good shape. And so this team has shown they can rely on a bunch of different people offensively and still find a way to win. I mean, last night, the worry was, what does this team do when they don't shoot it well from three? Last night they were under 30% from behind the arc, and they still won. And so that's a really good sign for this bunch. And, now they're building confidence. I mean, nothing wins like winning. And so this team's gone out, and they've beaten 2 Power 5 conference foes. They've won at 2 ostensibly neutral sites. I mean, the Oklahoma game was neutral in location only. But last night was a K-State quasi home game.
Yep.
There was a solid representation of Husker fans there, but if the crowd had to be tabbed one way or another, it was K-State. So Nebraska's won a couple of neutral site games. They've beat Power 5 competition. They've won with the 3. They've won without the 3. Just a lot of good signs in the early part of the season. This Tuesday game against Winthrop interests me and kind of scares me, because here this program is. They've been patted on the back for 2 straight weeks, and they're facing a team that you could very easily overlook. This is, non-conference cannon fodder, and yet they went to the NCAA tournament last year. So Nebraska
earlier this year too.
Yep, and so that'll be that's sort of the next step for this program. Okay, you can go out and play well. Now this bunch has expectations on them. What do they do with them? I feel good about their chances. I feel good about what they'll be able to do, but that's another test for them. But yeah, last night, great night for Nebraska men's basketball. Fun game. That the 11-0 run or whatever it was to start the second half by K-State wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I mean, man, that second half was just tight.
Yeah, it was back and forth. Yeah, you mentioned the fact that Nebraska was able to win the game without having that really, really excellent 3-point performance. That phrase, live by the 3, die by the 3. Nebraska didn't die by the 3.
Yeah.
They were able to win a game even without it. And I think it was nothing more illustrative than the fact that they got doubled up. They doubled up K-State in the paint, 48-24.
Yeah.
And it was actually uglier earlier in the game. I think it was at one point like 40-14. So K-State really attacked the rim late to keep it close, but Nebraska still had a very, very big edge and very much hat tip to Rink Mast on that one. The other things, obviously Sam Hoiberg makes the free throw at the end, but even more than that, they have the ball with under 30 to go. So they know they're drawing up the game winner or it's going to overtime. And who's handling the ball? It's Sam Hoiberg.
Yeah.
He's trusted in that moment to handle the ball against a K-State defense. He's trusted to get them into the right play, to get the handoff to Sanford for the shot. And then he doesn't just pass the ball off and watch the ball. He runs up and goes for the rebound. he is crashing the boards, and that's why he's in position to get that shot up and get fouled and get to the line with 0.6, I mean 0.9, I mean 1.2 seconds left on the clock. That whole shenanigans was another conversation.
Sure.
And then there's another thing. They at times, if you look at who's on the floor, they have Sam Hoiberg, they have Cale Jacobson, they have Braden Frager.
Yep.
3 Nebraska kids on the floor at the same time in a Power 4 matchup, in a matchup worthy of the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
The way they were going back and forth. And we've talked about this over the years about how, hey, it's unfortunate that Nebraska is not getting these Nebraska kids who are going off and playing for this big program and that big program, or they're going to Creighton or what have you. And obviously Sam Hoiberg was not highly recruited, and he's the coach's kid.
Right.
Cale Jacobson walked on and has built himself up to be this. But hey, there's a time where I don't think you'd have to look in the too far distant past to think of a guy like Braden Frager going to Creighton and developing and being a good player for the Blue Jays instead of the Huskers. Not so. And credit to Hoiberg and his staff. They got him in here a year early. He essentially interned at Nebraska basketball instead of going through a senior year at Lincoln Southwest. And now he's ready for the big time. He is cold-blooded, as Ernie Stewart said on the postgame show, ice in his veins, and he is contributing in a big, big way. And I'll say one more thing about what Kent and Jeff said. After the game, they noticed Nebraska acted like they've been there before. It wasn't oh my God, we won this game, incredible, I didn't think we could do it. And they celebrated, yeah, but it wasn't like an over-the-top celebration. So to your point about, hey, they are hearing a lot about how awesome they are. They've got the nation's longest win streak. You know, Cole's telling everybody how it's awesome that babies being brought into this world because they're the best ever. They're keeping it level. They're keeping it even. They could have been riding high after the Oklahoma game and crashed down against New Mexico or K-State. They didn't do that. So I don't know that they're due for that. Maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe they will stumble in one of these non-Power 4 games coming up. But they have a temperament, I think, that is suiting them well for what's next.
Yeah, it's a veteran team. I think that's the bottom line. And in college basketball, it's such a dichotomy, and it's one of the things that has made college basketball more open. I'm not going to say it's made it better, but it's made it more open for a school like Nebraska that doesn't have the history of a Kansas, of a North Carolina, of a Duke, whatever. Those schools, the Blue Bloods, they're getting all the McDonald's guys that are going to be there for 1 year. And they're really talented. And when they get going, they're tough to stop and all of that. But Fred has built this program in a way where it's just such a cohesive bunch. And he's figured out the rules for this team and how he wants this team to fit together. He's figured out how to build a team for the Big Ten. I think that was an adjustment he needed to make as the Nebraska men's basketball head coach. But he's brought in a mix of guys that he's developed. And, when you're playing at a talent deficiency, as Nebraska will be against some of the bigger teams, you damn well better be able to develop the players. And Sam Hoiberg being a coach's son, maybe there's a little asterisk there, but that's still a good story of a guy developing. Cale Jacobson's a great story of a guy developing. I mean, Frager, the fact that he was able to hang around the program last year, there's no question that helped him out and positioned him to be ready to contribute right away in a way that I think succeeded my expectations. And so you think of a guy like Birke Buchengel. I mean, he was a guy that you kind of wrote off as far as an offensive guy. He's useful. Rick Mast has gotten better as he's stayed here. So you feel like as players stay here, stay in the system, they get better, and they stick around. So you're able to build something with these guys, as opposed to some of these programs where they go, okay, which 3 McDonald's All-Americans are we getting this year, and can we get them to play together, play defense, share the ball, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's built just the way that Hoiberg wants it. I think last year they maybe overcorrected on the physicality side after that A&M loss in the tournament, and they didn't really have the explosiveness, the 3-point shooting that you would want in a Hoiberg offense. Not so. This team has it. They have it in bunches. We've got a great show lined up as we're going to continue chatting about this Nebraska ball team right after this with Wilson Moore from the Omaha World Herald. He's probably on his way back from Kansas City right now after being down there for the Hall of Fame Classic at T-Mobile Center. We will also get to the football. We will get to the volleyball. What does TJ Lateef do for an encore? Will Nebraska finish the regular season undefeated and number one in volleyball ahead of the NCAA tournament? And of course, Husker women's basketball still unbeaten as well, with Britt Prince, Jessica Petrie doing their thing, and Natalie Potts poised to come back and give them a boost. It is a busy Saturday morning. Join us over on the YouTube stream on KLIN YouTube page, also the Facebook and Twitter pages, the Husker Hour Facebook page as well. We're up on the YouTube. We've got about 60 of our closest friends with us. Come say hi with Nate and I, and Kenny's got us up as well. Wilson Moore right after this on the KLIN Husker Hour.
Heart Royal. Giving you an inside look at everything Huskers. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Rolling along here on your Saturday morning as it's a busy time of year. We've got Husker men's and women's hoops still unbeaten. We've got Husker football out east up at Penn State with another nighttime kickoff, 6 o'clock. Hopefully the weather will stay nice. It's not going to be terrible. It might be a little rainy, but we'll get to the forecasting of that. But first, some of what was going down a little bit closer to home as Nebraska men's basketball was victorious, the Hall of Fame Classic, and was in the building covering it for the Omaha World Herald and now covers it with us here on Husker Hour. It's Wilson Moore. Wilson, good morning. Coming to us live from your Kansas City area hotel. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm sleep deprived. I'm not going to lie, but other than that, I'm doing just great, Cole.
Very good. Well, I don't know where you want to start. There's a lot of different elements to what went down there over those 2 games in Kansas City, but I think it was pretty telling that at times you have Sam Hoiberg, Cale Jacobson, Braden Frager all on the floor together. And that's an element that hasn't really been there for Nebraska, getting those close to home recruits and having them be good contributors. What is this kind of the culmination of what Fred has tried to do in terms of, not letting guys get away from the state and keeping them here, especially Braden Frager, who is already making a big impact as a redshirt freshman?
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing of the 3 guys you mentioned is those guys all appear to be kind of development success stories for Nebraska. You think about Sam Hoiberg and Cale Jacobson, both redshirt, and Braden Frager, all 3 redshirted their first years. Hoiberg and Jacobson were walk-ons, the guys that it was like never even clear if at any point in their career they would be rotation guys, and they worked their way into significant playing time, and guys that Fred Hoiberg really trusts in the second half of a kind of gritty, wild, emotional game like this. And then Braden Frager obviously has been, you can make a case, maybe the breakout star of these first 6 games for Nebraska after redshirting last year and coming in just ready to go. So yeah, I think the 3 you point to there are all examples of just, something you don't see quite as often in today's world of the transfer portal in college basketball, but just staying patient, guys waiting their turns, developing behind the scenes until they're ready to contribute in the way they have.
How big a win is that for Fred Hoiberg, and how much can that say about how he develops the rest of the roster? Because even putting those 3 guys aside, it feels like everybody gets a little better the longer they stay under Hoiberg and in this program.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to answer the first part of your question, it's a huge win for Nebraska. With the way Nebraska schedules in non-conference, the Huskers don't go too crazy. They don't get too aggressive in their non-conference scheduling, a lot of bye games in there. And that means these kinds of games for Nebraska, Oklahoma last week, obviously Creighton in a week or 2, are all especially big because they're chances to build up the resume before Big Ten play for a team that doesn't give itself that many chances to do it. So to capitalize on that is huge. That's going to pay off in March. That's probably going to be a quad 1 win. I mean, Kansas State sure looked the part of a tournament team this weekend. So for Nebraska to get a win over them on what will go down as a neutral floor will be big for the metrics. And the other part of that, so what you're saying, Nate, is, Nebraska runs a complicated offense. I don't think the Fred Hoiberg offense is for guys that aren't smart basketball players. And, I think Rink Mass is the perfect example of that. Someone that they went after in the portal a couple of years ago, in part because of his savvy and passing ability. And you can see it with guys this year. Berke Buchtengel is the one that comes to mind for me. He's a guy who I think just looks so much more confident in that offense. He talked about it a week or two ago. He knows where he needs to be. He knows what his job is, just so much more than last year. And that's the result of playing in that offense for now in his second year.
We've got Wilson Moore from the Omaha World Herald talking Nebraska ball with us here on Husker Hour. We also get to chat a little bit about the game 3 games ago, which is the Oklahoma win up at the Sanford Pentagon. That happened since last time Nate and I were on together. And there was, at one point they're down 16. They're still down 10 with 14 and a half minutes to go. They had that 11-0 run, and they ended up winning that game 105-99. It was one of the most efficient games of the efficiency ranking metrics this century for a Nebraska basketball team, any Nebraska team, let alone against a Power 4 opponent. What have you seen from this team in particular and the explosiveness that they've shown that leads you to believe that it could be different as far as how this season ends up. And we all know the trivia question, the thing that Nebraska is chasing that has never happened. What have we seen so far from these last 3 games that leads you to believe it could be different this time around?
I think one of the biggest strengths of this Nebraska team, and the past couple of games have been a perfect example of that, is just the sheer number of options they have. That Oklahoma game, that was Price Stanforth's night. The other night, Stanforth led the team in scoring, but it was also Braden Frager, carrying the load. Against New Mexico, Jamarcus Lawrence was the high scorer. Rink Mast has been great this season, a guy who can really stretch the floor. So I think when you compare it to last year, when that team, especially in the last 6 weeks or so of the season, needed Bryce Williams to score 20 points every game. And if he didn't, there were not a lot of paths to victory. This team just has so much of like a wider path to winning games. There's so many more guys who can be the guy on offense on a particular night. And we saw last night in the second half, they were able to grit up, be tough, and get to the rim against Kansas State the last 20 minutes of the game when shots weren't falling. So I'd just say the versatility and the number of options this team has.
You led me into my next question, because you look at that OU game, the Huskers were over 100. You look at the game last night, and Nebraska scored 86. And you can certainly win games like that in that manner in the Big Ten, but to beat some of these Big Ten teams, you're going to have to win a sausage bowl game. It's very similar to football, where you're going to have to win a low possession, gritty game. What have you seen in the start to the season that suggests to you that when Michigan State is uglying up a game or whomever, that they'll be able to win it?
Yeah, again, I'd point to that second half. Nebraska could not buy a 3-pointer in the second half against Kansas State. K-State was on fire, and Nebraska just got it done. They were ultra efficient from 2-point range. I think 11 for 12. That's where Rink Mast, his versatility really shows up, where he's a guy who can stretch the floor. But last night he was directing traffic. When he got a mismatch in the post, he took advantage of it. And, Price Stanforth and Braden Frager just made a real point of looking to get downhill, get to the rim. So I think the last 20 minutes of that last game was maybe the best evidence we've seen from Nebraska so far that it's going to be able to get dirty and gritty with some of those Big Ten opponents.
Wilson, looking now a little bit wider at the Big Ten at large, I'm not sure how closely you've looked in on all these teams since the season started, but I wonder where you'd maybe tier Nebraska at this point within the conference. Obviously, Purdue is the top team in the country. You've got another couple top 10 teams in the rankings, and in Illinois and Michigan. A number of the Big Ten schools are still unbeaten. USC barely so after a triple overtime 3-pointer against Troy. But where do you think Nebraska slots in as far as, they're picked 14th, 13th in preseason, and then now after seeing what they've been able to do against 3, now New Mexico's not a Power 4 opponent, but they're a pretty good opponent. Where's Nebraska in your mind relative to their Big Ten brethren?
I would say certainly in the top half of the Big Ten, in those top 9 teams, like you alluded to. I think if you're dividing the Big Ten in like a tier system, I think the first tier is just Purdue alone by itself until someone proves otherwise, and then probably Illinois and Michigan State in that second tier, and I think that third tier is wide open, and that's where I think Nebraska falls. Wisconsin got kind of punked by BYU yesterday. That I think that sort of called some things into question. That was of what they could do. I still think that's a good team in Madison, but I think like a lot of years, that middle of the Big Ten, that 4 or 5 through 11 could just fall into any order, and I think Nebraska's right in the middle of all that.
Yeah, we'll get you out of here on this one. How excited are you to not be having to go to State College, Pennsylvania this weekend?
I'll put it this way. I'm very happy I was in the arena. If I had the choice, I would have taken being in the arena in Kansas City last night versus in Happy Valley today.
Yes, I would agree. That's probably where you'd rather be. I guess. Well, one more. What does TJ Lateef do for an encore? What do you think the offense can look like and can do against a much better defense in Penn State?
Oh man, you're throwing me into football mode at the end of this.
One more. Sorry about it.
Yeah, I'm just looking for how I think a big thing is like, how is he going to respond to when things get a little hairy, because they never really did against UCLA. And it's inevitable that, Penn State's going to cause a little more chaos, make TJ Lateef more uncomfortable than UCLA was ever able to. So the big thing I'm looking for is just how does he handle that? How does this guy who was in high school less than a year ago deal with it in a harder environment, better defense, where things are inevitably not going to go completely smoothly the way they did a week ago?
Yeah, we shall see how it goes. 6:00 kickoff tonight, 2:00 pregame. You'll hear it right here on KLIN. Wilson Moore from the Omaha World Herald joining us from Kansas City, having witnessed Braden Frager and Nebraska basketball at the Hall of Fame Classic. Wilson, always a pleasure. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, there goes Wilson Moore, and we'll dig in a little bit after this break, Nate, about TJ Lateef and Husker football and just what they can accomplish out there in State College, Happy Valley, whatever they call that place out there.
In the middle of effing nowhere.
Yeah, I saw a couple of the media members got to a Pittsburgh Penguins hockey game last night, so that was fun for them. At least they had, didn't have an early morning. It's a 6:00 kick. You can go out, and I don't know how far away Pittsburgh is from there. It's a little bit far, but at any rate,
it's not bad.
We won't talk about Pennsylvania geography when we come back. We'll just break down football as we continue on with the KLIN Husker Hour right here on 1400 AM and 99.3 FM. KLIN.
The Huskers news this week. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
later tonight, and not quite as late as 2 weeks ago, it'll be Nebraska and Penn State. Huskers with 7 wins, looking to make it 8 for the first time in almost a decade. And they're going to be doing against a team, Nate, and who knows what you'll see from them, but they are still in play for a bowl game. They're 4-6 are the Nittany Lions, having just won their first Big Ten game of the year last week. Gosh, that sounds weird to say, against Michigan State. And they've got talent, and they've got talent in places that could hurt Nebraska. They've got a really good pass rusher off the edge, and we all know how Nebraska's tackle play has been this year. Yeah. And then the other concern would be if they can get their run game going. We know Nebraska has been very good against the pass, not so good against the run defensively. Those are the two biggest strengths that I see with this Penn State team on either side of the ball.
Yeah, it's funny how this game matches up because you feel like Nebraska's strengths are Penn State's weaknesses in terms of stopping the run and in terms of throwing the ball. And you feel like Penn State's strengths are Nebraska's weaknesses as far as their ability to run the football and their ability to rush the passer. And so it will be interesting to see how, and both teams are playing with a freshman quarterback. There's a redshirt freshman, Grunkemeyer, but still a freshman quarterback, not the guy that you walked into the year thinking would be your starters. So it'll be interesting to see the chess match in this one. I still expect Nebraska to be very Emmett Johnson heavy. If we learn nothing from the Minnesota game, at least get him the ball constantly. Every way, left, right, up the middle, throw it to him, hand it to him, pitch it to him, whatever. The question is, what is Penn State going to do to try and take him away? And what does that open up? And, it's funny, we were talking about this on the Tailgate show yesterday, and, the first play of the game against UCLA was really smart on a lot of levels. Because what was Nebraska's first offensive play?
Zone read, keeper.
TJ Lateef run.
Yep.
And so that implanted into Penn State's head, or into UCLA's head, hey, we're still going to focus on Emmett Johnson, but TJ Lateef is a factor here. So Penn State's going to have 15 people, the Joe Paterno statue, and the 2 guys from behind the creamery, the counter at the creamery in the box, right? For pretty much every play. Yeah. First play of the game, look for play action. I mean, I think that would be the way to go, to set in their mind, whether you complete it or not. And I know it puts you behind schedule. But put in their head, look, we're looking to go deep here, and that hopefully opens some things up for you in the run game. And so I think that Nebraska has to utilize play action. They have to look down the field a little more because, whether the box is crowded because of the run or because Nebraska didn't throw it down the field last game. And I thought that was good game plan by Dana Holgorsen. Don't get me wrong. Nebraska wasn't trying to hit the downfield shot. They weren't asking too much of TJ Lateef. The box is going to be crowded. So the open real estate's going to be 10 to 15 yards down the field. So try to get there and try to look for it and try and open some things up, especially early, to where Penn State will be reeling a little bit because they expect you to hand it to Emmett Johnson 3 times.
Yeah, I think that would be an excellent early down for a call for Holgorsen. And as we look at what Nebraska's offense will do, I keep thinking about how efficient, how on schedule they were against UCLA. Nebraska didn't face a 3rd down and long until I think the 4th quarter. And so the way they were able to not put themselves behind the 8 ball, avoided penalties until later in the game, and they scored touchdowns on the first 4 possessions, obviously. I don't see that happening again. And so that is the big question for me is, yeah, you can have a good, early, 15 play script and run that and feel good about where you are with that. But How do you react to what Penn State throws at you? How do you react if you have a 3rd and long? How do you react if Emmett gets stuffed in the backfield and you're just like, oh crap, well, we were supposed to be in 2nd and 5 now. Now it's still 2nd and 10. Like there are a lot of things that we didn't see from Latif that I'm really interested in seeing, because he's not going to be, I don't think, as bad as he was against USC. He's not going to be as good as he was against UCLA. He's going to be somewhere in the middle. It's just where along that spectrum does his play land? And is it still hey, we need all hands on deck. We need to all up our game because he's a true freshman and this and that. It's something that they really, like Matt Rule hammered on that going into that UCLA game. If everybody else is still raising their level this week, you feel pretty good about what you can get done offensively, especially if you can get a little bit more done in the pass game with not just Emmett Johnson, but from Ja'Cory Barney, from Dane Key, from Isaiah Hunter, maybe even a little Luke Lindenmeyer. So that's how does Nebraska react when things aren't going exactly as planned? That's the big key for me.
Yeah, and how does TJ Latif react when more is asked of him? Because though he was very efficient in the pass game, there wasn't a whole lot asked of him. Those guys were going to be open. You were going to be able to pick up 4 to 5 yards, stay on schedule. The big pass plays came with run after the catch. And, the big question is when they're so focused on Emmett Johnson that there are going to be some things open out there. It's just, can you get to those open things in time before Dennis Sutton puts you down on the turf? And can you work through the progression of your offense while Penn State is putting forth a pretty good pass rush on you?
Yeah. David Cook with the Facebook comment on the stream. We need to utilize all of our weapons to keep Penn State off balance the whole game for the win. GBR. Yeah, you're right, David. They really do. I think need to mix up where they go. Obviously, Emmett's going to get his, but if you're designing this pass game, if you're Dana Holgerson with TJ Latif at the controls, get Ja'Cory Barney more involved. John Bishop had the stat yesterday on Tailgate, 55 total receiving yards over the last 5 games. Granted, he did score the first touchdown last game against
UCLA. It was a hell of a catch too.
It really was. You would think that you could get, find a creative way to get him the ball, get him on a reverse or, a little jet motion, something. Just let him get out in space. But there's a lot that you can get from that. And one other piece to this matchup, and then we'll hit our next break. Special teams, I think, is a very big factor in Nebraska's favor. Penn State's been good in the kicking game in terms of hitting their field goals. And as Nebraska's got a couple more misses, but they're pretty similar. But Nebraska, in terms of defending punt returns and kick returns, is very, very high up in the rankings. They're top 12 nationally in both categories, in kick return defense and punt return defense. Penn State is middle of the pack in national rankings in terms of return. So not allowing any of that stuff to help Penn State's offense get set up in favorable field position is where you want to be. And so, again, this could be a Mike Eckler game. If you have a TJ Latif struggle, and if you are struggling to get Penn State off the field with their run game or what have you, and it comes down to that third phase, Nebraska definitely has the edge there. So that's a pretty good place to be. Let's just get it out of the way now. Let's get our predictions for the score here, and then we'll get to a little bit of volleyball and women's hoops. What do you have down as far as what the result will be tonight in State College?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a classic Big Ten West Sausage Bowl game, 21-17. Huskers win it. Both teams run the ball. Both teams keep the clock moving, keep their limit the number of possessions. Their freshman quarterback has to go out and run the offense. Huskers get the job done.
I'm right there with you in terms of where the score range is. I think it'll be in the high teens, low 20s. I'm not quite as positive. I think there's a couple mistakes that Nebraska's offense makes that sets Penn State up. I think Nebraska falls 23-20 with the Nittany Lions getting the win. And I hope I'm wrong. Hope you're on. You were on with the UCLA prediction. I was skeptical, and you were positive, and you came out on top in there. So Let's hope you're right again.
Nate Rohr, noted TJ Lateef believer.
Nate Rohr, noted ball knower. Obvious. As we move on to another sort of ball, the number one kind, we'll switch over to volleyball when we come back here, as they are already co-Big Ten champs. They'll lock down the entire thing here shortly, and then it's looking ahead to what that bracket looks like. That's what's ahead of Nebraska, and you know how many of the national awards they end up sweeping in as well. We'll talk volleyball when we come back here, and plenty more on the KLIN Husker Hour. Stay with us.
Savor the season. Husker football, basketball, baseball, and beyond. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, well, Nate, I lied. There's one more thing I wanted to get to before volleyball. You've seen the movie Office Space, right?
Yes.
So you remember the jump to conclusions, Matt? A terrible idea by that guy that got hit by that truck or whatever.
Yes.
So I feel like there was a lot of that going on in Husker world this week when Dayton Raiola decommitted. There was just a lot of jumping to conclusions, like, oh my God, his uncle just got fired. His brother's transferring. Dominic is swearing off Husker football for the rest of his life. Like, there was just a lot of hand wringing and worrying about it when, you know, there's a lot of reasons why I think Dayton may have decommitted, but I don't think all of the Raiolas have had their ties cut all of a sudden. It's just one item, one thing that maybe only applies to a 17-year-old kid in my mind.
Yeah, it's a reassessment of where things are for the quarterback position. I mean, as skeptical as I have been at times about TJ Lateef and the certainty that some people seem to have, that he's going to be a great quarterback. The fact of the matter is he looks like the next guy. So as Dayton Raiola sits there, he's going, I'm not going to get a sniff at this for about 3 years. And so Dayton's looking for a different opportunity where he can play right away. I don't know that he's developed quite as much as he's needed to where he could challenge TJ Lateef for a starting job after next season. So it's probably in his best interest in terms of playing time to go somewhere else and start there, and then maybe you develop and assess it after that. But, it guarantees nothing. It suggests a lot, but it just doesn't. This is not something we're going to know for another week or so. I mean, we just don't know where Dylan's head is. And, for Dylan's part, if he's sitting there thinking, well, my starting quarterback job isn't guaranteed, he may get evidence tonight or in 6 days that maybe is in his favor. So, like you said, everybody's jumping to conclusions off a high school kid's decision and one full Big Ten game, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. Now, well, again, we'll learn more about it. I just wanted to mention that because I don't think it says definitively any of that. It's just,
Precisely.
maybe some not. Anyway, something that is definitive: Nebraska volleyball, really good at volleyball. They are number one in the nation still, unbeaten.
That's a hot take.
Still, Iowa forever, still. Iowa and Creighton never beat Nebraska volleyball. You love to see it. And Nebraska is the Big Ten champions. They've clinched a share of it, at least a share. And so Nebraska now can clinch the whole shebang. And that one is tonight against Indiana. They're out in Bloomington. That's a 5:00 first serve. You can hear that one over on B107.3. And that's when this thing will be sewn up. They've got 2 matches next week, which they're doing a blackout against Penn State next week after Penn State got taken to the woodshed and welcomes them to the Bob Devaney Sports Center. And then they'll wrap up the regular season with Ohio State. There's only 3 regular season matches left, Nate, before we find out what this bracket looks like. And then it's all about December. How far can they go? Can they get the national championship?
Yeah, and Danny Busboom Kelly, I thought she's handled everything well this year, but especially the Big Ten championship discussion this prior week before the Iowa match, saying, "Hey, it's a big deal to us. It's important to us, but it's not the deal to us. It's a step on the road to where this team wants to get and hopes to get." And they took care of business against Iowa. There was that second set that was kind of close, but they did what they needed to do. I'll be interested to see how they match up with an Indiana team that's had a surprisingly good year this year. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where they were the doormat of the Big Ten. They've had a pretty good year. So it'll be a bit of a challenge, I'm sure, but the way this team has played, the level of focus they've maintained, it's tough to see them dropping any of the next 3 matches. And so that's an undefeated regular season. And, I don't think there's any question they're going to be the number 1 national seed. Whatever questions you might have had of, the Big Ten's down this year, and even if they go undefeated, Texas has already lost, Nebraska beat Kentucky. Long as Nebraska takes care of business, they'll be the number 1 national seed, and then it's in their hands from there.
Yeah, it'll all wrap up here pretty quick. By next Saturday, we will be at the end of the regular season, and then on to the bracket. All right, we'll be back to wrap things up and get you ready for the weekend right after this here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
Listening to the KLIN Husker Hour. Executive Travel Talk is next on 1499.3 KLIN.
Nebraska.
Talking with current and former Huskers and those that cover the Big Red. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, and then we spent the first half of this show talking about Husker men's hoops. Husker women are also unbeaten. They are in action down in Florida. They'll take on IPFW on Monday, the 24th, in the Emerald Classic. And then you got Britt Prince. She's better than last year, even as she moves into her sophomore season and really kind of takes the leadership reins from Alexis Markowski. Jessica Petrie's been in double digits every game along with Prince. And once they get Natalie Potts back and work her back into the offense, this team's going to be a tough one in the Big Ten. They're not going to win the conference, I don't think, but they're going to be in that upper tier, and they'll be a tournament team again, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right on. They're certainly a team you're going to have to deal with, and you think of the development of Britt Prince, and she was already pretty good last year, but she's taken over as that number one option for the team that she didn't really have to be last year. She is now, and she's handled that just fine.
Yeah. And of course, you'll be able to hear that right here on the family of stations. That'll be on KLIN and B107.3, that Husker women's game on Monday. And then, Nate, before we come back next Saturday, Husker football regular season will be over because that Iowa game is Black Friday. Will Nebraska be 7, 8, or 9 wins by then? What do you think?
Head says 8, heart says 9.
Yeah, I need you there. I think they're going to be at 8 if they beat. I like them in the Iowa game for reasons, but I don't know. It'll be fun to see. They've got 2 more, and we'll be back next Saturday to break it all down in the immediate aftermath of Black Friday, whatever happens. So thanks to Wilson Moore, thanks to Kenny Larrabee for getting us up on the StreamYard. For Nate Rohr, I'm Cole Stukenholtz. Go get a win down in KC tomorrow, all right?
I'll bring it. Let's hope so.
And go Big Red.